All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that is actually the case. Of course, we may have an outage at some point. I don't know what's happened the last two streams in a row, but at like 10 or 15 minutes or something, it cut out. So I'm going to hope that doesn't happen. The cats are both asleep. The child is out on the town. So other than that, we shouldn't have any problems. Let me make sure that we're live on Rumble. Yes, we are live on Rumble and chat is working. Make sure to join me on Rumble, by the way, if you're not watching there. Now, you should definitely subscribe. We're still about dead even with InfoWars as we trudge towards 200,000 subscribers on the platform. I'm going to be live streaming the midterms there as well, so I expect that to be a pretty successful show. We have Sleazy P. Martini as co-host. Anyway, I'm just making sure that everything is working. Everything's fine. Just to make sure. I don't want any hiccups. We've got a lot to cover today, starting with Trump trolling the DOJ the other day with his statements. We've got so many great things to talk about, and some sad things, of course, what's happening in Iran, of course. You've had more people killed there, unfortunately. So we're talking about that. I hadn't covered the Iranian protests, actually, until today, here and now. And that's because, again, you can get a fog of war kind of effect. They've shut off the internet in Iran as well. So you're only going to get a trickle of actual information. Any regime that's capable of shutting down the internet in its country is illegitimate. That's basically all of them. We need better security for people's communicative purposes. Roscoe P. Coltrane, did your beef stew contain rabbit? No, the rabbit's actually out in the freezer, unfortunately, because Liz snubbed it. She didn't want rabbit meat. Apparently had a bad experience with it at one point in her youth. I find it delicious myself. Fool, when your kid grows up, are you going to self-censor? I'm not going to swear around my child. As far as the creative side of things, I keep that separate from the upbringing sort of side of things. So I don't say much about my child online, and I think that's for the best. If when she's older, quite a bit older, if she wants to do things online, that's fine. But that has to be kept in mind, that I already have a large established audience and don't want any creepazoids and stalkers doing stupid shit. Anyway, we'll start off here. Yeah, we've got our friendly fly. That's the co-host of the day. Doesn't seem to be any end to them. It'll be December and there'll still be flies buzzing around, I guess. And I've killed more than my fair share of them so far this year. Trump says presidents can declassify docs even by thinking about it. Donald Trump claimed in a Fox News appearance that documents taken to Mar-a-Lago were declassified while he was in office. They were. And here's the thing, like with the DOJ case in general. Judge Deary, former judge technically, the special master in the case, was always going to allow those things that are marked classified to be gone through. It doesn't make any sense for Donald Trump to fly the coop and give his rationale behind why they were declassified until the documents are gone through and a case is actually made. There's no reason at this point to believe any criminal cases pending against Trump at all anyway. It looks more like document repatriation. If that's the case, Trump's not in any trouble. What are they going to do about it? Keep the documents? Send them to the National Archives? He doesn't have any reason to give his particular excuse, you could call it, to Deary, to the special master. The special master exists effectively to greenlight those documents that are marked classified and then go through everything else to see if anything else is actually pertinent to the warrant. Virtually none of it will be. Melania's underwear are not pertinent to the Espionage Act or to the National Archives. News clippings that are publicly available anyway, because they're literally from newspapers, those aren't pertinent. Personal belongings, tax forms, things like that, none of it has anything to do with the auspices of the warrant. I guess the liberal idea is that anything and everything goes, but that's not how the law works. And Trump and his legal team are aware of this. But they also harbor absolutely no illusions whatsoever that anything marked classified, even if he could show Judge Deary cell phone footage of him remarking up over a box of documents and saying, I hereby declare this declassified, and signing his name on an executive order or something like that in front of a group of staffers. It still wouldn't matter unless every single document pertinent to the case is individually gone through by Trump on that same video, and he scribbles his name over and over. It's not going to be accepted as a rationale anyway. And Deary, who was literally argued for by Trump, he was one of Trump's people that he put forward, has to at least pretend that there's some validity to the DOJ's case. Otherwise, when Trump inevitably does not end up in a jail cell, leftoids will riot. I think that it was a tactical decision. Adam THM, what is your dumbest irrational fear? I don't like having like jelly or honey or similar substances on my skin. I get the shivers just thinking about it, to tell the truth. It was always difficult eating jelly sandwiches as a kid. Very, very carefully, you put the quarter in your mouth first. You have to nibble around the edges and make sure that it holds together. If any drips out, then your day is ruined. Orchid Finance. What's your thoughts on Lee Zeldin refusing to debate Governor Jokel? The media is calling him a chicken. He's not going to win, so there's no reason to debate. Turgidson. Hey, Sticks, Wilburys or the Highwaymen? Whose cuisine reigns supreme? I'm going to go with the traveling Wilburys. Now, you can't go wrong with that particular lineup. That Manx guy sent $5, but no comment. Thank you very much. Yeah, the traveling Wilburys are one of my favorites. It's good that Orbison died when he did, so that they wouldn't get old and end up being one of those bands where they're all in their 70s and 80s and they're still doing shit. It wouldn't have worked. Next news story from MSNBC. Why this court ruling against Twitter is shockingly egregious. Far from promoting First Amendment rights, the Fifth Circuit's ruling seems to end them for large social media companies. Yes, we have MSNBC simping for the ability of firms that are publicly traded, that platform public figures that are taxpayer funded, publicly funded services, NOAA, USGS alerts, I've already explained this, et cetera, which work openly with the federal and state governments in order to censor people. They do not have limitless censorship power. That is that there is no particular reason why any lawful speech by a U.S. citizen should be censored on these platforms, because they hide behind 230 whenever there's a legal issue. Well, yeah, we know that we've had illicit porn on Twitter. This was a literal case years ago for an extended period and refused to take it down. But Section 230 grants us immunity against any legal suit. And so the suit falls through. If you are going to do that, if you are not actually going to properly moderate the unlawful content, why should you be trusted to moderate the legal content? It basically is the premise. Are you a publisher or are you a platform? The fact is that they act like both, and that's the real problem. The court case makes sense. The Fifth Circuit's decision may very well hold up in the end, and I hope that it does. It would clear the way for true independent commentary to be considerably less bannable, and it would lead to a spate of U.S. creators. It wouldn't apply to anyone in any other country, at least, to get back on these legacy tech platforms if they choose to do so. It'd be funny because it would add insult to injury for the common carriers, which is what they're supposed to be under 230 of the modern public square. Half of them probably wouldn't even bother getting back on these moron platforms because they're already big on other ones. For instance, Rumble, just going public the other day on NASDAQ, by the way, BitChute, etc. There's no reason for these companies to be able to limitlessly ban people from any site for things that are not unlawful. If you think it's unlawful, then get the courts involved, get the police involved potentially. If it's lawful, then nothing should be done. They should be able to say exactly what they want. And but I like it that MSNBC is simping for legacy tech censorship, and I know why, and I've said it for years. It's because their competitors are big on tech platforms. MSNBC's main lineup does not get as many views as many independent content creators. Fuck, I think that I'm competitive at this point, despite algorithmic demotion on YouTube, just on that one platform with some of their lineup myself. They are afraid of independent commentary. This is why YouTube and Facebook and all of the others have gone out of their way to at least demote content that countermands the sort of the narrative that's being built by the legacy media. They're doing it for money. They're pushing censorship because they're losing money. Nobody how many people go to MSNBC.com to read up on the news? A handful of NPR mug owners, some bored sweater liberals, their middle-class homes and their NIMBYism. That's basically their core audience. And it's the over 60 crowd, too. So they're simping for more tech censorship. Not a surprise. I think that they'll lose this round, though. Not a banned account. How soon will Ukraine counterattack Moscow? Yeah, I know. I see some people afraid of the idea that Ukraine will be crazy enough to advance into Russian borders. That would be suicidal. They don't need nukes. Putin keeps threatening with them, but all he needs is thermobarics. And Russia happens to have quite a few of them. Ukraine does not. Cosmic Surgeon. I've noticed Robert Gouveia and Tim Pool both have been having problems, very similar to yours with their live streaming programs, audio crashing, etc. Yeah, it's a big problem. Goose Burt. If Biden ultimately succumbs to Alzheimer's after his presidency, will everyone who claimed he had it as president be vindicated? Yes, but it'll take a long time for that to be declassified. It'll be sort of like Wilson's stroke and the scope of that inability within his life. Not a banned account. Could temporary martial law help against MAGA? Probably not, because the soldiers would lay down their arms in large part. I genuinely believe that they would refuse to fire on their fellow citizens in large part if that were to happen. A little bit different from dealing with foreign groups that the U.S. military loses against anyway, even when it's given carte blanche. Michael Cricklow, will you address the North Dakota MAGA teen killed? I did yesterday in my live stream, actually. Hismanai, happy clank. Talking about fucking garden gnomes. You will never get a Styx Hexenhammer garden lawn jockey. Next, we have to talk about, I think this is the biggest foreign news, certainly. Iran shuts off its internet as protests worsen. Iranian authorities have almost completely shut off the country's internet and restricted access to Instagram and WhatsApp. Yeah, protesters taking to Instagram. Here's the selfie with the police line. Yeah. Flooded social media with videos of anti-government demonstrations and violent altercations with Iran's police. This time, Iran may actually have a problem. The longevity and size of these protests are bigger than what we've typically seen in the past, based on, again, fog of war style, based on a limited view of the situation. Iran has hefty censorship anyway. It seems to be a significant proportion of the population that's really pissed off against the Iranian government. By the way, let me address something sideways from this. Did you see Amanpour from CNN? I was going to interview the Grand Prime Minister, the Grand Poobah of Iran, and then refused to wear a headscarf, and so he stormed off. I find it absolutely abysmal and appalling that Western legacy media would get itself into a situation where it's trying to grift attention off of the actual protests by going to Iran. You know what the rules are. You're going to be talking to their leader. You know that you're supposed to wear a headscarf. And now you're grandstanding and pretending like you're stunning and brave. Now, stunning and brave are the people in these crowds that are throwing rocks at the Iranian guard. The people that are heroic are the ones that are getting shot at right now, not some fucking CNN commentator. The grift is real, and they definitely they want to portray it as though one of their anchors so bravely. It's sort of like the Western white liberal woman persona. I stood up against this evil regime on behalf of all women in the world. Meanwhile, the only time that you would set foot in a country like Iran is with 5 or 6 armed guards in the fucking background. Sit down and shut the fuck up and let the Iranians deal with it. CNN is indeed assho, Shane D, 1985. I thought that was abysmal, but there's no way to gauge what's going to happen next. It seems like the protests are bigger than they have been in the past. The Iranians, for a theocratic regime with a lot of hardline authoritarianism, they really do protest a lot, but I don't think we've seen anything quite on this order, certainly not in recent memory. I think that I think that they may actually overthrow their government, to tell the truth. Russia may have to get involved, which would be funny. And the timing, let's face it, may not entirely be coincidental, just to be clear. but they may attempt to overthrow their government. And they may just knock off their prime minister or the Shah or something like that. We'll see what happens. But they have had mass protests before and locked it down thereafter. It just is kind of funny that this is happening in Azerbaijan, Armenia, Kazakhstan, here now in Iran, all roughly within the same span of time. To be clear, I may be realistic about the Iranian regime being authoritarian and needing to be overthrown. I think that'd be a good thing for the people of Iran. I'm also realistic about Western interventionism, just to be clear. I mean, there was a time when Iran was reasonably developed, and the United States helped to make it theocratic, to be clear, because of the early Cold War situation. So hopefully they can reverse that long trend that they've been in. Ozzy's Robots, do you think if we had giant prosthetic breasts on our YouTube channels like that Canadian teacher, the algorithmic suppression would have to cease? I think that people should probably do the I'm the brown milk thing and start making more noise, because it'll make censorship a lot harder. Maybe I'll have a dildo stapled to the wall behind me. New York Patriot. Hey, Sticks, it's actually Hochul who is running from debates. She just agreed to 1 while Zeldin wanted 5. Yeah, the Democratic candidate's MO has been to stave off debate as long as possible. And then once early voting and mail-in ballots start already filtering in, then to agree to a debate that they might actually follow through with. Warnock has done this, for example. I don't know, has Hobbs in Arizona actually agreed to debate Carrie Lake yet? I don't think she has. She might be the odd woman out and be the one that, in the end, continues to refuse. I don't know if I got the fly this time. There's 2 of them now. They're multiplying. Mr. Doc, Trump should come out with a body pillow of the wall, but have it manufactured in Mexico. Then at home, everyone can have Fort MAGA. Yeah. Matt, no North Carolina Senate prediction. It's a close race. Cheers. I'll have to look into the numerics later. Anyway, just a second here. Don't worry, no technical issues at the moment. Hot Stove is hot on Rumble. Hey, Sticks, did you make the 9/20/22 Washington Post list of 77 most influential disinformationers? Oh, I'll take your link and I'll see if I did. Doubtful. The list of 77. Oh, yeah. And of course, because it's WAPO, you have to go through their fucking paywall. I've got a solution for that. Paywalls don't do well when you archive things. If I can actually grab the link. I want to copy the link address. Thank you very much. I doubt that I did. I don't know. I must be doing something wrong. I'm no longer constantly hit by hit pieces anymore. Just occasionally, like when they had my, remember the Reuters one that they had only a few weeks ago, and one of my videos was on their splash page. Even though they didn't kindly decide to shout me out in their article, I was very sad. Salty Ironworker, if Trump wins in 2024, in your opinion, how long would it take him to get us out of whatever economic mess he will inherit? He won't be able to get us fully out of it. It will be a long-lasting one, in my opinion. But things would be better than the alternative. Thanks for always taking time to answer my questions, my friend. Hope family is doing well. Yes, they're out at the stores at the moment. Not a banned account. Why do you disagree with Beanie Man on Civil War? Because at the end of the day, most people, even if they have derision for others, do not actually want to take up a gun and shoot them. Somewhat undermining the argument about MAGA being a terroristic death cult, by the way. Joe Biden's dentures. Odds Trump is cuffed live on CNN after the midterms. 0%. Emp DDD. A couple weeks ago, Pim Tool said you have an open invitation to come on Pimcast IRL. All expenses paid. So when are you coming back to God's country? When I have time to do so. I'm here with my wife and my child. Next news story while we wait for the fucking archive to load. AOC says young people not having children because of burdens of capitalism. More immigration is the answer. Let me stop Fruity McFruity here just for a moment. The young girl, as Manchin referred to her as, she found that to be very insulting, even though she was talking to someone twice her age. Not exactly an insult for his ancient generation. Let me just sort of explain the problem with what AOC is positing. And the first problem is that this correlates with the rise of more and more government centrality. So it's not capitalism, it's more and more socialism. It's moving to the left economically. Secondly, if you solve the problem with more immigrants, you continue to depress wages, leading to an endless cycle where you need more immigrants. And this is by design, by the way. Ultimately, what the globalists want is a heavily industrialized part of the world where people will be kept in welfare decadence, so to speak. They'll be given a little bit more than the poor people in the third world. The third worlders get breadcrumbs. Their countries are perpetually destabilized. And because people in destabilized areas tend to have 5 to 10 kids, there will always be more manpower to immigrate to the Western world, leading to the rise of worldwide globalistic slavery. Just putting that out there. It's fairly clear that that's what they want. They want people to make do with less so that the super rich can have much more, so that Klaus Schwab can eat his filet mignon and have a limo fleet and private jets, and you're not allowed to eat meat anymore. You have to live in a pod, you have no future, and there's nowhere to escape, by the way. It's not like the revolutionary period where there was a huge chunk of land in the world that wasn't yet settled or fully explored. Everything's been settled. Every arable area has been explored. Every square inch of land that can be developed, unless you want to go into the national parks and bulldoze things, is already settled. It's already being used for some purpose. Since there is nowhere to escape, they think that they have the entire world's population in a corner. This is also what wokeness is for. It's to convince you that doing this, enslaving people to lower and lower standards while exploiting the entire third world for cheap labor, is actually a godsend. It's the right thing to do. It's good for the world. It's nice. Well, it's not nice. It's called slavery. Not a banned account. Is it possible to conceive children with demons? No. Although if you are interested in that subject, read Demoniality by Sinistrari, because he claims that demons would literally enter into corpses and then fuck people. Like the corpse would rise up out of the grave and fornicate with people. And this explains nocturnal emissions, by the way. And then it would give birth to demonic spawn. Also claiming that certain birth defects were the result of effectively the same thing. I'm not joking, by the way. Fucking read it for yourself. It was a hilarious work. Catholic work, early 1800s. Caleb Arbor. Regarding New York, I don't think they can do anything with his funds. This is a civil case with no victim. The banks did not file anything, and he paid them. Possible. They're going to try to persecute him anyway. Joe C. What boggles my mind is how states like Arizona could lean right for years under McCain, but favor left candidates after his death. What the hell? McCain was a leftist. Big government, big spending, big centrality, censorship advocate, woke towards the end. How is he a conservative, would be my question. John McCain was never a conservative. He's like Mitt Romney. The Agao faces. Why I'm into Kigurumi sticks, the most uncanny thing that you could find on Twitter. I don't know. No clue. And the archive seems to have worked here. Let's see the list. Do they even have it on here? Probably not. Probably don't even have the complete list listed. Yeah, Trump social media megaphone. Hey, I got tweeted out by the president at one point, so I should be on the list, shouldn't I? I don't know. Fuck it. Who cares about what the WAPO says anyway? Declining number of people, I assure you. Over on Rumble, Joker 1. I was in Marine boot camp in 1979 when the Iranians took over our embassy. A new Iranian government has been on my life's bucket list ever since. You may get your wish, it looks like. Avonx. Did you see the Dutch cabinet walk out the other day while the Forum voor Democratie guy held his speech? Any opinion on this, or do you rather not engage in Dutch politics? Fellow Anshade Clanker. Oh, hello there. Yes, we're probably only a few miles from each other right now. I prefer generally not to weigh in on Dutch politics as I am a resident but not a citizen. I can't vote, I can't hold office, and it's not my place generally. I've weighed in casually on a few things, What I would say is that if I were Dutch, I would probably support Geert Wilders because he seems to be the sane man in the room. I'll leave it at that. Melinze 1981, keep up the great content over on Rumble. Thank you. They're $100 over on Rumble. It seems like Rumble, how many people are watching right now? There's over 1,000 people watching in Rumble. The engagement is actually going up, which is more than I can say for YouTube, generally speaking. And shit, there's almost 3,000 people watching that too. But yes, I generally prefer not to weigh in too much on Dutch politics. BW, take lawsuit to Supreme Court if you have to. Think of them getting hemorrhoids, having to let us back on. Trump is down in approval. Do you think we still win? Yeah, I think that all odds point to Trump running, certainly if he does, winning the nomination, and probably winning in the 24 election. Sparky, no one heard of Warnock before he was inserted as senator. Herschel Walker's a beloved figure of boomers and Gen X, even anti-Trumpers. He's known to let his actions speak rather than talk slick BS. Yeah, but if you're going to debate Warnock, you need to make sure to deal with his rhetorical style, which is more refined. You have to get your point across in a succinct and proper manner during a debate. Now, unfortunately, we have some bad news here. 1-year-old dies as 11 more suspected Ebola cases are identified in Uganda. So this is not the middle of the Congo. This is not Liberia with the West African outbreak some years ago and Ebola Chan and all of these things and the Medicine Sans Frontier getting involved. Uganda now has Ebola, and they've confirmed some of it, and they've recorded a related death of a 1-year-old. Samples for the 1-year-old and the 10 suspected cases undergoing isolation are being tested at the Uganda Virus Research Institute, the ministry said. Now, I'm going to point something out with regards to Ebola and other infectious diseases in the third world. In most cases, like the Uganda Virus Research Institute, Westerners entirely prop up the medical complex, shoving people who are native born to the side. As a result of this, we've actually weakened the medical infrastructure of the third world that would have developed by now had we not done so. It's the same as the perennial argument within anthropology and governance with regards to giving food aid. Famine hits a country. People are hungry. The West pours, especially grains and other things, into the country to try to compensate, to keep people alive in refugee camps often. Native farmers, therefore, that could grow a crop, if the weather conditions were better, they fold. Why would you grow food? You can't compete with free. And so you create a never-ending cycle of dependence. This is spoken of openly. It's not exactly an out there conspiratorial sort of thing. The problem is we've done the same thing with medicine. If you give free mosquito nets to everyone, why would there be a domestic market for mosquito nets? Well, they're not gonna pay a fucking penny for them. They can get them for free. The same thing is true with condoms, that are given out like candy in some parts of the world to try to prevent AIDS, especially. You're not going to see a manufacturing plant set up anytime soon now, are you? There's no reason to. Nobody would ever make any money on it. Capitalism is the law, and not just the law of the jungle, as AOC claims that it is. Mr. Marbles, Civil War, Civil War, Civil War, no duh, Civil War. Not a banned account. William Jennings Bryan, bimetal for US dollar. No, I think the US dollar should continue to be a fiat. Mr. Marbles, again, ranting about Civil War. I'm not going to continue reading out all of the Civil War commentary. Nobody is forcing you to donate, Mr. Marbles. It's time to troll a fan. Joker 1, McCain was a conservative once every 6 years when he was up for re-election. His concubine, Lindsey Graham, learned well and behaves the same. Exactly. That's exactly my thoughts on John McCain. And Mitt Romney, and Liz Cheney, and all of the others. Ask them to actually conserve something, and they'll say, oh my God, that sounds bigoted to me. Oh, well, I will conserve my wallet. Yeah, I'll give plenty of kickbacks to the corporations, but I'm never going to shrink the government so that those tax savings go to the little guy, to the farmer or something like that. That would be socialism, right? Mojo Hansen. Had you on overlap yesterday. Rumble was 19 seconds behind on Livestream YouTube. Was messing with my brain listening to two of you at the same time. If it was less, it'd be funny because then people could hear me in echo mode. Not a banned account. Do you officially disavow calls for civil war? Yeah, of course. I always have. I think that it is possible to reform the system as long as we do a hard reset back to a previous incarnation that worked. We had that for a very long time in the United States. We already had a system that worked. Once the slave debate was ended, things generally tended to work well, absent big government, Jim Crow and the Democrats. From roughly the antebellum period, when you start getting real development, all the way up through the mid-nuclear era, the fall of the Soviet Union, things are capable of going back. Trump is effectively nothing more than a reset to the early 90s. He's not extreme. He's just late stage globalism. Globalism in the earlier forms was something that economies could generally deal with. We're now in the late stage. We're like in stage 3 cancer at the moment with regards to globalism. It was effectively a form of chemotherapy for the world economy. Hoyview 09. iSticks, what software do you use for these videos? I am thinking of starting a little something myself. Let's make it the Three Musketeers. Clank. I use StreamYard. It works very well. I do have the paid version. Zen Master Jack, thoughts on the possibility of the U.S. balkanizing at some point in the near to far future? Not going to happen. And nobody. I don't know what would be worse for the world, a nuclear war or an Ebola pandemic. No, I've had Ebola pandemic before. I think the Ebola pandemic would kill fewer people. Next news story. Georgia Democrat Stacey Abrams. There is no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks. It is a manufactured sound designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body. Reminder, Abrams supports no limits on abortion. Let's wade into the Stacey Abrams crap here by saying one thing first and foremost. Stacey Abrams and people like her who are completely in it for themselves. She doesn't give a shit what happens to some poor woman who gets knocked up. She only cares about her wallet. That is Stacey Abrams. She's very rich. She's very politically influential. She has hers. She can pretend all day. I see through it. She doesn't give a shit what happens to some barefoot in the kitchen chick who gets knocked up at 16. She's just feigning it for political clout. People like her are the reason why Roe v. Wade did not become the major midterm issue that Democrats hoped it would be. When Roe v. Wade ended with the Dobbs decision, they breathed a sigh of relief and said, oh, thank God, we're going to crush the goddamn shit out of the Republicans. Other than climbing up a little bit in the generic ballot, they have accomplished nothing. I've been studying the polls since then. There was no immediate movement, and there's been, if anything, movement against the Democrats in many of the close races since then. That's because people are ignoring the issue in favor of more meaningful things. Everyone suffers when there's inflation, unless they're a 1%er and there aren't that many of them. Not everyone can get pregnant. Everyone suffers when there's gas shortages. Not everyone can get pregnant. You see where I'm going with this. The sort of issues people care about impact more people. And ultimately, even some people are like, well, I'm pro-choice. You know, I believe, I'll take myself as an example. I'm pro-choice. I believe first trimester abortions must necessarily remain legal. Exceptions for a woman later than that, if her life is in danger, of necessity, in my opinion, must remain as well. But I weigh that issue against, hey, everyone's being crippled. The economy is literally plummeting out from beneath us, and we're looking at possibly another great recession, which will kill a great many people and hold them back, wreck the economy intergenerationally, possibly start a world depression. When I look at foreign policy and I say we're inching closer to a nuclear war, when I look at the border and say, hey, everyone in the working class is getting screwed, blued, and tattooed right now, and the immigrants are being used by pawns by leftoids and continuing to suffer, I look at those issues and I say that they impact more people, therefore they're more impactful. I am agreed with by the majority of the population on this. Stacey Abrams and the late termers that want abortion to be legal up until the very point of birth are the worst enemy of people that wanted to capitalize on this issue. Now, we'll go into the fetal heartbeat debate. A fetal heartbeat, and the growth rate is differential from fetus to fetus, is not the result of a fully formed heart. She is fundamentally correct about this. The problem is that cardiac tissue has already formed and there is a flow of blood by 6 weeks. She is wrong about this. I see so many goddamn word games right now with this issue. People are splitting hairs constantly. But I don't care. The heartbeat is not fundamentally, in my opinion, what matters. It's the cognitive function, the ability to feel pain. The ability to be viable outside of the womb is used as a metric by some. Some people try to use fetal heartbeat as a metric. I think the cognitive development is the most important one, because you can lab grow a heart, but it can't feel anything. If somebody stabs it and it stops existing and it decays, have you killed a person, or is it basically a piece of meat? I hate to be very blunt. Cognitive development is, in my opinion, the most important aspect of determining abortion legality. That and my deep-seated concern with a government that's capable of banning it entirely, because I don't believe in authoritarianism by states over people's bodies. I would agree with the left on that. Abrams and people like her are not the ones to have this debate. They should sit down, shut the hell up, and be goddamn silent. The Democratic Party should beg Stacey Abrams not to say another word in the goddamn race on the issue. But she's a blowhard, so naturally that won't happen. Beto is a commie. Is it just me, or is Beto's latest jogging stunt a troll on Abbott's disability? As a Texan, I can't wait to see him demolished in November. Vote Abbott. Yeah, Abbott's got no competition from Beto. Mr. Marbles, it's okay. You can act like you don't know the U.S. isn't effed. I don't think that it is. We've been through worse, believe it or not, in most metrics. We just happen to have a steward instead of an actual chief executive at the moment. Michael Cricklow, how do you make your quesadillas? Mine are lovely. The easiest way to make them is just to melt cheese in the microwave into a wrap, but I go a bit beyond that. Pan roasted, of course, good cheese as opposed to, for some reason, American cheese, and some jalapenos comes to mind. Those must be in it. Seeded tomato. Mojo Hansen, nothing starts with N and finishes with G. Silky Johnson, have you heard of Jackson Hinkle, the MAGA communist? He claims Marxism and communism is traditionally conservative. Any truth to that, or is he grifting? He is grifting. And, shit posting occasionally on my tweets, when I weighed in on MAGA communism and the irreconcilable inability for it to actually exist. You cannot make a country great again or maintain tradition with heavy top-down centralistic authority using an economic system that has never actually worked. Crazy Loon, I am working on writing a pamphlet on how time is the ultimate currency. Yeah, time usage definitely matters. Not a bad account. Do commenters talking Civil War glow in the dark? Only some of them. Some are just black-pilled. Miku4xbot, did the special master flip on Trump? Twitter, Yeah, I know a lot of people are saying that, but he's just doing his job. He was always going to clear the classified materials there. Even if they were declassed, it literally is meaningless. They would still be gone through because they're marked classified. Power Guy Mark. With the exception of possibly Jimmy Carter, I am of the opinion Donald Trump may be the only non-CIA sponsored POTUS since JFK. Thoughts? I don't think Ronald Reagan was CIA sponsored. I think he fucked up in his second term. I think Reagan would be an exception. We know that Herbert Walker was CIA sponsored, and we know that Bush was CIA sponsored, and we know that Biden's certainly on that group. The others, while they were failures, I will remain ambiguous on my opinion on that. Not a bad account. For future fans, do you support Mars independence? Oh, if people go to Mars and then they say, fuck the Earth, I guess they can do that, but they're going to run out of resources pretty quickly. Brandon. Let's go, Brandon. What is your favorite historical period, if any? That's a good one. I like the period of ancient Greece and some of the ancient civilizations back then. Red Raider Matthias, beating a dead horse here, but to your earlier comment, Beto has had no support compared to 4 years ago when his signs were freaking everywhere. Yeah, it seems like people have soured on poor Robert Francis, and I love to see it. Over on Rumble, Joker won a Little Sticks garden gnome. Flipping off the rabbits would be kind of cute, in my opinion, and I'm hetero. Lol. And then UltraMaga721. The same people that said Hillary had a 96% chance of beating Trump are trying to convince us Trump is losing popularity. Yet his rallies draw tens of thousands, so I think not. Your thoughts? You are correct. And we will be talking as well about MSNBC's cope with regards to Trump's popularity. This will be a good one. The Soldier Christian. I met with Monica De La Cruz, Texas 15, and while she claims to be MAGA, I have a feeling she will pull a Dan Crenshaw and go full neocon. P.S. God bless. Give her a chance, though. If she's the purported MAGA candidate, elect her, give her a chance, and kick her out if she does a Crenshaw. That would be my advice. Mr. Marbles. I grew up in South Africa in the 90s. I became an adult in America in the 2000s. I grew up in a crumbling country, and I'm living in a crumbling country. Yeah, but South Africa had other problems. It aligned with the Eastern Bloc and has a much, much more limited economic basis. It then also got racked by AIDS to the point where about 10% of the population right now is positive. Think it's a little bit apples to oranges. Next news story. This is, you can ignore the part at the top. Links in the description, by the way, if you want to follow along. This is from 2022 midterm election news on Fox. The only part here that I wanted to comment on was the Pence part near the bottom. Pence returning to Iowa to headline Republican dinner. Wow, isn't that great? If you pay enough money, you can have a dinner with Mike Pence with overpriced food. How much does the wine cost at that get-together? Former Vice President Mike Pence will head back to Iowa next week as he'll be the guest featured speaker at a prominent Republican family's annual gathering. Pence's trip to Iowa will mark his second visit in a month to the state that for half a century has kicked off the presidential nominating calendar. Another potential signal that the former vice president is fucking retarded. Oh, I mean, moving towards launching a 2024 White House campaign. Pence will headline the 15th annual Kaufman Family Harvest Dinner. I bet that's not the same Kaufman that works with Odyssey, by the way. Which will be held Thursday, September 29th in Wilton, a small town in eastern Iowa. Word of his visit was shared first nationally with Fox News on Thursday. Wow. You mean if I pay $1,000 or I don't even know what the fuck this would cost, I can see Mike Pence up close. I can breathe the same air as Mike Pence. Here's my question. Here's what I wanted to address with this, because I don't give a shit about Mike Pence. I always hated him. I still do. Why is it that there are any Republicans that are pretending that he's still relevant in any meaningful way? Name one thing that Mike Pence did while he was VP. I'll wait. The neocons can't answer that question. A Bush neocon would be hard-pressed to actually, from memory, give me any reason why I should care about him other than being a footnote in history. And these same people tend to be Trump derangement syndrome sufferers. So he was VP under the Orange Man. He was VP under the discredited, abysmal, abominable, inherently criminal, insane Donald Trump. Let's invite him to dinner. Yes. What a high billing appearance. Yeah, Mike Pence. He's going to be doing appearances at Arby's soon or something like that. Nobody wants him. Have you seen the fucking polling for the primary that, will happen for the GOP? Even if Trump gets in and he seals the deal on day one, there will still be other people running. Mike Pence running solo against Trump with the endorsement of literally every possible non-MAGA Republican would almost certainly still lose. He has no base of support. Nobody likes him. And now he's swinging way off into evangelical land. Dude, trying to wine and dine the voters most heavily overlapped with the furthest segment of MAGA is just not going to work. But Pence is doing this because he gets paid to do it. How much did he get paid to go to dinner? He gets paid to eat. Sort of like that fat dude that smears nachos and shit all over his face and does food videos on YouTube. He does the opposite of what Eugenia Cooney does. Not a banned account. Why do channels shill gold or silver, not platinum? Well, the buy-in for platinum is so much higher that there's less demand for it. At least in that sense, more valuable, by weight. But people, unless they have millions of bucks, probably don't hold it as a store of wealth. I'm a silver man myself. I like the way it looks, the way it feels. Sparky. Does okra grow in Vermont in the Netherlands? It really produces here in the deep south. By the way, Pence was a cock plant, a modern-day Judas Iscariot. He's worse than Judas. At least Judas, in the end, he realized that he was wrong. Mike Pence still is going with the grift. He get his 50 pieces of silver. He wants 50 more, plus interest. Okra does not grow well in Vermont. If you start it indoors, you can get a crop, but it's quite long season. It costs an enormous amount here in the Netherlands. I saw it once in a rather hipsterish part of the Netherlands called Diemen. A lot of young urban professionals there, kind of a little bit out of place myself in that particular area. And they had okra at the Jumbo, and Jumbo is not an overpriced market, alongside plantains and other exotic goods. Yes, okra is considered exotic in the Netherlands. I can't remember the exact price, but when I saw it, my jaw dropped. It was more than cuts of steak. For a little packet with like 4 pieces of okra, I think it was about €8. It makes no sense. It's not hard to grow under the right conditions. Adam, just wanted to say thank you for recommending The Elfin Ship. I didn't know it was possible to write such a comfy book. Excellent. Yes, everyone check out The Elfin Ship by James P. Blaylock. You'll have to get a used copy. It hasn't been in print since the 80s. BW. Who would be able to keep that meal down? Someone pour salt on this slug. Yeah, poor Mike Pence. Hidden Archon, any upcoming debates for you? I think I have one with BTR that is preliminarily planned. I still got to get back to Lev on that one. Next news story. Scientists at America's top nuclear lab were recruited by China to design missiles and drones, report says. At least 154 Chinese scientists who worked on government-sponsored research at the U.S. foremost national security laboratory over the last 2 decades have been recruited to do scientific work in China, some of which helped advance military technology that threatens American national security, according to a new private intel report obtained by NBC News. Fuck, when the legacy media is willing to report on this shit, you know that it's bad. The report by Strider Technologies describes what it calls as a systemic effort by the government of China to place Chinese scientists at Los Alamos National Laboratory, where nuclear weapons were first developed. Many of the scientists were later lured back to China to help make advances in such technologies as deep earth-penetrating warheads, hypersonic missiles, quiet submarines, and drones, according to the report. Scientists were paid as much as $1 million through participation in the Chinese government's talent programs. Now, here's the kicker. Here's the real kicker, a little further down. This was legal. They didn't even break the law. Apparently, the U.S. government is so fucking stupid that it allows foreigners to come work in the highest grade nuclear weapons facility in the United States and then get lured back, as though that wasn't part of their fucking plan to begin with, and get their payoff, taking secrets with them. And they didn't even break U.S. law in most of these cases. Unless there's evidence that they signed paperwork with the Chi-Coms beforehand and deliberately committed espionage, they didn't do anything wrong because they were there at will, and they went back of their own free accord, despite having been such patriotic Americans. I want to be American so bad. Let me build Uncle Sam more nukes. Oh, China's offering me $1 million, though, so bye. Do you think that these people weren't queried beforehand as part of a larger espionage event? I think that this report is missing something. I think it's missing the admission by the U.S. government, we just got fucked in the ass real big. Yeah, Los Alamos had over 150 Chinese scientists in it. Why was anyone who wasn't a native-born U.S. citizen even at Los Alamos in the first place? Why do you need to import nuclear scientists from fucking China, of all places? Oh, well, he says he's a dissident. He wants to leave China. Certainly, we don't need to look into him anymore. You know, this is how the Russians, in the first place, the Soviets got the atom bomb, correct? By Fuchs, you know, the scientist working at Los Alamos, the commie who was feeding intel to Stalin, leading to a situation where when Truman told him, hey, we have a super weapon now, we're going to use it too. Stalin didn't even blink. He didn't even give a shit because he already knew. They were already developing their own rudimentary designs by then. Whoops. Yeah, loose lips sink ships. Yeah, was Fang there? Did she ever get there before she died in that mysterious plane crash a few years ago? A crafty Huragog, talking about politics to Americans is meaningless. Me living in a left-wing area and being right-wing, people here are politically defective. Now, talking to people can work. It's just you have to say things in a certain way. You have to have rhetorical capabilities. If you just say, well, the liberals are stupid, here's why, and you're saying it to a liberal, that ain't going to work. You have to focus on side issues and work your way in. The Spence Fencer, Little Mermaid is based on legend Melusina. You know her? No. Didn't know that. Sparky, red burgundy okra has anthocyanins. Anthocyanins. Is that good or bad? Is that a vitamin or mineral, or is it a poison of some sort? Haven't been in biology class in a few years. So yeah, the U.S. nuclear program, once again, has been robbed blind, like it had before by the Soviets and the Israelis and arguably others. Weapons material has been sold continuously the whole fucking time. Anyway, last news story here. This is a big one, but it's only big because MSNBC keeps smacking itself in the cock by reposting it. MSNBC's Twitter handle has this maddening tendency to take the same news article and post it over and over day after day, despite nobody giving a fucking damn, over and over for weeks, sometimes at a time. This is, I think, the 5th or 6th time I've seen this on the fucking feed. It's a new post from the other day. And this from MSNBC. 61% of Americans don't want Donald Trump to run for president in 2024, poll finds via Maddow blog, so take it with a grain of salt. Now, let's assume that that number is true. So a vast majority of Americans don't want Trump to run again. There are several problems. Number one, the Republicans do not have a 39% vote share. It's in the low 30s. Therefore, this means that a significant proportion of independents don't mind him running. So he's got Republicans and right-leaning independents already stacked up. No, that's not bad. That's a voting coalition. Number two, and MSNBC didn't post this. I noticed that they didn't post this on Twitter 5 or 6 times. There was polling a few months ago that showed that an overwhelming majority of Democrats don't want Biden to run. So here's how they match up. 61% of people in the entire voting public, so this is Republicans, Democrats, Independents, don't want Trump to run again. Well, that's virtually 100% of Democrats, other than a handful that think he'd be easy to beat. I suppose they're in the please run camp. Independents and Republicans. For Joe Biden, if you just poll Democrats, people who have partisan alignment with his ideology, leftoids, people that are aligned with the party movement, more of those people, over 70%, don't want Joe Biden to run. Among fucking Democrats. Why is that not being mentioned here by MSNBC? A better headline would be, Joe Biden massively conceived as more unlikable by his own party than Donald Trump, even among the fucking whole population. I wonder why they wouldn't be posting that one. I thought it was really, really funny, though. I mean, I keep pointing it out every time I see the post. Again, it's like the 4th or 5th time that I've seen it. So I'm doing people a favor. I'm correcting the record. Mr. Marbles, I think Biden has helped a lot with the troops and the actual economy. Like, it was going to flop, but at least he made sure it didn't go even lower. Yeah, I would disagree with you, Mr. Marbles. Not that that's probably a surprise. I see the cat has woken up. The Landlord Harassment Channel, what's your opinion of pigs in schools? I think that pork should be served in school lunchrooms. Of course, if you have a religious exception, you're not forced to eat the BLT. But so considering the lettuce is no longer green and it's turning brown, I don't think anyone wants to eat it anyway. School lunches are not exactly the most high-class food in the United States. It's funny. Have you ever seen, by the way, I am being facetious. I know you mean cops in schools. I just think we should arm the teachers. So I'll answer your question in a non-joking manner first. Have you seen, like, when they do like roundups of food in schools and where the United States sort of stacks up to other countries? And in Italy, they're eating fucking pickled eel and stuff like that. And there's like, the cannoli or whatever. And it looks good. It looks like something you'd actually want to eat. And the U.S. school lunches, okay, here's a carton of milk, some mandarin oranges, or if you're lucky, a banana or something. Here's a couple pieces of bread with a slice of cheese on it. Yeah, go fuck yourself. It really is low effort. I have to say, I wonder why the U.S. population has obesity issues and low general health. I don't think that it's because of health insurance being expensive. I think that it's the diet and exercise routines. Machete-ish Records. Gerald Malloy versus the deranged Peter Welch. Yeah, Peter Welch in Vermont, actually, in the only poll that was conducted, wasn't actually that far ahead, considering Vermont's such a deep blue state. By the way, food update. Tonight we're making lemon chicken. And Liz is making the lemon chicken. I am making my famous Cajun sweet potato fries, by the way, which every single one of you would enjoy. Don't worry, I'm not using seed oil. Butter tastes good with sweet potatoes. And tomorrow, beef stew again. I made it so well. Liz, generally speaking, if she has a meal, unless she's like on a snack kick, like, she avocado on toast or something, generally doesn't want to eat the same main course sort of meal, like more than once in a month or something. My stew must have been really goddamn good. And I'm improving it this time by doubling the amount of meat in it and increasing the celery because, I would eat literally just the celery boiled in the fucking beef stock myself. It is going to be delicious. Used a flat iron steak the last time. The only problem is most of it fell apart, which is by design because I literally wanted that. I kind of like it when there are shreds of beef throughout the entire stew and it's not just giant chunks of stew meat. Like the tougher stew meat, it softens up but it holds together more. I kind of wanted to have some big intact pieces, but then also have some of it literally just melt apart because it's so tender. And I accomplished it. I am proud to say my first beef stew ever was a success. I'm thinking about trying to make dumplings as well this time. Wish me luck, I'll need it. Mr. Marbles, let's try Democrat 2024 and see how he, she, or them will perform. Just give them a chance. I know I will. Yeah. It'd be funny. It ends up being a doomsday cult and they vote all far left just to destroy the country faster. By the way, no more super chats, please. We're going up on an hour, and I've still got some super chats to go through. Alex Bogie, the Ukrainian-Russian borders were drawn by communists as a Machiavellian tactic to mix Russians and Ukrainians to prevent Ukrainian independence. Yeah, I guess. Sparky, anthocyanin is an antioxidant, a good thing. Oh, excellent. I guess I'll have to grow more okra in the future. BKP. Oh, I'm almost saying it in Dutch. BKP. My apologies. So you can afford some coffee to clank. You do lives this early. I need some clanking to remind me to make coffee. Yeah, I didn't brew coffee today, actually. Crafty Huragok. As a right-wing person, I had a migrant as me if I was even from here because I did not bow to the left-wing dogma. No amount of talking will change. The Landlord Harassment Channel, your reaction to Rumble going public. I think it's a good thing. It'll bring in a huge amount of money and help more advancement. Also, I mean, the spectacle at NASDAQ alone gets a lot of attention for the site, so I think it was ultimately a good move. Joker 1 on Rumble. Anthony Bourdain had a great clip on French grade school food, pumpkin soup, etc. More nutritious, kids loved, and it was cheaper than U.S. school meals. Yeah, that's the other thing. It's overpriced because of corporatism, aka government monopolism. It's a big problem in the United States. It costs too much and it delivers too little. By the way, when I was at UVM, for example, Sodexo did the catering. I don't know if it still does. They also catered to most of the U.S. prison system. They also catered to a bunch of elementary schools around the country. Why is it that the same firm is catering to a prison and to a supposedly reasonably posh university? It made no sense. Like, I know they have different brands, and of course the people trained to cook it are doing a better job because they went to culinary school, but it's basically the same basic stock, providing food for a mass murderer as providing it for a college kid. I wonder why people get the freshman 15. By the way, I will admit, they did make really good chicken burgers. I had quite a few of them when I was at UVM. I didn't have the freshman 15, though. I gorged myself and I never gained any weight. Not a banned account. You need to get a sponsorship from 9 Energy Drink. That would be hilarious if that happened. Ken Kurihara. Sticks, the war pigs are calling for regime change in the USSR. How can we stop these lunatics? I don't care if they undergo regime change. I just want no involvement in it one way or the other. If the people of Russia overthrow Putin, it's not like there's not just going to be another oligarch leading them that's post-KGB anyway, so I don't see that it changes anything. Sparky, bread okra with masa flour instead of cornmeal. Anyway, I think I'm going to go offline. We're running up on an hour. Got through all the news, thankfully. And of course, I've got other things I have to do. At some point, I should prep the sweet potatoes, I suppose. And I'm going to cook a lot of them because Cajun style, sort of roasted sweet potatoes, you put them in the oven. One of the best things ever. Doesn't even need ketchup, believe it or not. That's coming from me. That's definitely a compliment on the basic recipe. I thank you to the roughly 5,000 people watched live. Yeah, that's about all. Peace out.